For those that testing in the automatic truck, Class B, this is how you guys gonna see the truck, okay? When you guys testing for the Class A automatic, you guys will see a truck something like this, tractor and trailer. But when you guys doing the Class B, it's just the tractor, okay? So what I'm going to do is gonna performing the B pre-trip on Class B automatic. I'm gonna make sure I chock the wheels. I'm gonna put one chock on the front, one chock on the back, and then I'm gonna start my B pre-trip. First thing I'm gonna inspect, I'm gonna go to the other side. And then I'm gonna inspect my exhaust system. I'm gonna make sure my exhaust system coming all the way from the front, all the way to the back, and it's not cracked or broken, and it's not leaking. You see what's leaking? I will see a black soot. My exhaust system is securely mounted by hangers and straps. My straps and hangers, they're not cracked or broken, and they're securely mounted, no missing hardware. From here, I'm going to inspect my fuel tank. My fuel tank, I'm going to make sure it's not cracked or broken, and I'm going to look under, and let's make sure it's not leaking. My fuel tank is securely mounted by the straps. I have two. I have one in here, one in there. My straps for my fuel tank, they're not cracked or broken, and they're securely mounted, no missing hardware. I want to mention that my fuel tank is not shifting. You see what's shifting? I will see a shiny metal. Now, I want to inspect my steps and the catwalk on this side of the vehicle. I want to make sure they're free of debris, grease, or any other contamination. My steps and my catwalk, they're not cracked or broken, and they're securely mounted, no missing hardware. Now I'm going to inspect my fuel cap. I'm going to mention that my fuel cap is on the lock position. It's not cracked or broken, and it's not leaking. I'm going to open it to make sure my safety chain is present. It's not cracked or broken, and it's securely mounted, no missing hardware. The rubber seal inside my fuel cap is not excessively worn or torn, and it will not leak. I'm going to close it. And then I'm going to walk into the other side. On this side, first thing I'm going to inspect is my marker light. I have one on the other side. They're amber in color because they face in the front of the vehicle. I'm going to make sure they're not cracked or broken, securely mounted, no missing hardware. They're amber in color because they face in the front of the vehicle. The function of my marker lights is my left turn signal, my right turn signal, my forward flashers, and my running lights. From there, I'm going to inspect my mirrors. I'm going to make sure my mirrors, they're not cracked or broken, and they're securely mounted, no missing hardware. They're securely mounted to the arm. The arm is not cracked or broken, and it's securely mounted to my vehicle, no missing hardware. My door, I'm going to make sure it's not cracked or broken, and it's securely mounted. My door handle is not cracked or broken, and it's securely mounted, no missing hardware. My door, open and close properly. My door, I'm going to make sure it's securely mounted by the hinges. My hinges, they're properly aligned, they're not cracked or broken, and they're securely mounted, no missing hardware. I'm going to inspect my inner seal. I'm going to make sure it's not excessively worn or torn or ripped, and it's securely mounted to the vehicle, and it will not leak to the inside. Now, to be detailed, I'm going to inspect these steps and these steps right here. I'm going to make sure they're not cracked or broken, and they're securely mounted, no missing hardware. They're free of debris, grease, or any other object. Now I'm going to come into this side, and then I'm going to inspect the cross members. I have one in here, and one in here. The cross members on this side of the vehicle, I'm going to make sure they're not cracked or broken. They're securely mounted, no missing hardware, doesn't have any illegal holes or illegal welds. Now I'm going to inspect the frame on this side of the vehicle. I'm going to make sure my frame is not cracked or broken, and is securely mounted, no missing hardware, doesn't have any illegal holes or illegal welds. From my frame, first thing I'm going to inspect is my drive shaft. My drive shaft coming from the front all the way to the back. My drive shaft, I'm going to make sure it's not cracked or broken, and it's securely mounted. It's securely mounted by 3 U-joints. I have one in the front, one in the middle, and one in the back. My U-joints, I'm going to make sure they're not cracked or broken, and they're securely mounted, no missing hardware, and they have properly greased. Now, to be detailed on my pre-trip, I'm going to inspect all the hoses on this side of the vehicle. I'm gonna make sure it's no abrasions, bulges, cuts, or leaks, and they're securely mounted, no missing hardware. I'm gonna inspect all the wires on this side of the vehicle. I'm gonna make sure they're no exposed wire, no frayed wire, properly routed, securely mounted, no missing hardware. From here, first thing I'm gonna inspect is gonna be my leaf spring hangers. I have one in here and one in the back. My leaf spring hangers, I'm gonna make sure they're not cracked or broken and they're securely mounted, no missing hardware. Right in here is my leaf spring bushing. My leaf spring bushing, I'm gonna make sure it's not excessively worn or torn and it's securely mounted, no missing hardware. Now I'm gonna inspect my leaf springs. My leaf springs, I'm gonna make sure they're not cracked or broken or shifting and they're securely mounted, no missing hardware. My leaf springs, they're securely mounted by 2 U-bolts, shim, spacers, and 4 nuts. I'm gonna make sure they're not cracked or broken and they're securely mounted, no missing hardware. Now I'm gonna inspect my dry tires. This is a dual tires or dual axle. So I'm gonna start from the center. First thing I'm gonna inspect on the center is gonna be my inside half seal and my outside half seal. I'm gonna make sure it's not cracked or broken or leaking and it's securely mounted, no missing hardware. If my axle seal was leaking, I will see puddle or spin trail. If it was leaking, I could not service myself. I had to take it to the mechanic or a shop. From my axle seal, I'm gonna come in and then I'm gonna inspect my brake liners. My brake liners, I'm gonna make sure they're not cracked or broken and they're securely mounted, no missing hardware. They're not allowed to have less than 1/4 of an inch of the thinnest point of the material. My brake drum, I'm gonna make sure it's not cracked or broken and it's securely mounted. Doesn't have any sign of decoloration indicating the overheating problem. Between my brake liners and my brake drum, free of debris, grease, or any other contamination. Now I'm gonna inspect my rims. I'm gonna inspect my inside rim, my outside rim, my inside rim, and my outside rim. I'm gonna make sure they're not cracked or broken and they're securely mounted. My 2 rims, I'm gonna make sure they don't have any illegal holes or illegal welds. My 2 rims and my brake drum, they're securely mounted by the lug nuts. All my lug nuts, they're present, they're on the tight position. They don't crack or broken or have any distortion. It's one of my lug nuts was loose, I will see rusty in this middle rim. I'm gonna mention that between my 2 rims is no daylight and there are full contact. I'm gonna mention that between my 2 tires, free of debris or any other object. Now I'm gonna inspect my tires. This is my inside tire, the outside tire, my inside tire, and the outside tire. And then I'm gonna inspect the face of my 2 tires. I'm gonna make sure there's no abrasions, bulges, cuts, or leaks. My 2 tires properly seated to my rims. Now, because it's a dry tires, they're allowed to be regrouped, recap, or retread, but they're not allowed to have less than 2/30 seconds of the deepest point. The air specification on my 2 tires is 120 psi or manufacturer specification. To check the air on my tires, I will do it to the valve stamps. I have 2. I have one in here and one in here. My valve stamps, I'm gonna make sure they're not cracked or broken or leaking and they're securely mounted, no missing hardware. Now, from my wheels, I'm gonna inspect my mud flat. My mud flat, I'm gonna make sure it's not excessively worn or torn or ripped and it's securely mounted to my vehicle, no missing hardware. It has a proper distance to my tire and a proper distance to the ground. From my mud flat, I'm gonna come into the back and then first thing I'm gonna inspect is gonna be my dual brake chamber. My dual brake chamber, I'm gonna make sure it's not cracked, broken, or leaking and it's securely mounted by 2 clamps. My 2 clamps for my brake chamber, they're not cracked or broken, securely mounted, no missing hardware, and they're not leaking. Now I'm gonna inspect the 2 hoses for my brake chamber. I'm gonna make sure it's no abrasions, bulges, cuts, or leaks, and they're securely mounted, no missing hardware. Now, I'm gonna inspect my slack adjuster and my push rod. I'm gonna make sure they're not cracked or broken and they're securely mounted, no missing hardware. They're securely mounted by 2 pins and 2 counter pins. If I pull on it, it should be no more than 1 inch of the plate when my brakes are released. Now, for my slack adjuster, I'm gonna come in and inspect my ABS wire. My ABS wire is properly routed, no exposed wire, no free wire, securely mounted, no missing hardware. Now I'm gonna come into the back and I'm gonna inspect the cross member and the frame on this side of the vehicle. I'm gonna make sure there's no crack or broken, securely mounted, no missing hardware, no illegal holes or legal welds. To be specific on my pre-trip, I'm gonna inspect all the hoses on this side of the vehicle. I'm gonna make sure there's no abrasions, bulges, cuts, or leaks, and they're securely mounted, no missing hardware. I wanna inspect all the wires on this side of the vehicle. I wanna make sure they're properly routed, no exposed wire, no free wire, securely mounted, no missing hardware. Now I'm gonna inspect the lights on this side of the vehicle. They're red in color because they face in the back of the vehicle. I'm gonna make sure they're not cracked or broken, securely mounted, no missing hardware. The function of these two lights is gonna be my left turn signal, my right turn signal, my four-way flashers, my running lights, and my brake lights. The clear stripe on my lights, this one right here and this one right here, it represents my reverse. I'm gonna make sure they're not cracked or broken and they're securely mounted, no missing hardware. Now, under this light, it's gonna be a license plate light. I'm gonna make sure it's not cracked or broken and it's securely mounted, no missing hardware. Now, I'm gonna put myself right here and start thinking, is I missing something on my beep retrieve? If I don't missing nothing on my beep retrieve, I want to inspect the other side of the vehicle, the same way I inspect the side of the vehicle, that completes my beep retrieve.